What up? So today is one of those random days with random conversation with my daughter. So just randomly talking, she wanted to talk about drugs. So of course we're talking about drugs. Like, let's go do some drugs, but why do people do drugs? And basically the consensus came down is to people do drugs because of feelings. Because, she gave some examples of, she was talking about Rod Wave, talking about the song or something. Well, he was doing drugs because he was sad. Because the girl broke up with him, whatever, so he was doing Percocets and codeine and all that stuff. Then went on something else about why somebody else was doing drugs. They was happy and whatever. So the consensus was people do drugs because of what? Feelings. And the way they feel. Or the way that drugs make them feel. Or the way that drugs keep them from feeling. Because numb is a feeling too. Remember that. Then we went into decision making. And how drugs affect decisions. If you're doing drugs because of your feelings, then you're not in your right mind, because you're not using your mind, you're using your feelings when you make those decisions while you're what? On drugs. That's why when most people on drugs make decisions, it's usually the wrong decision and usually end up in trouble or end up in situations they don't want to be in. Then we went from that subject on to being at the club, and I was telling her that anytime she go to the club and she get a drink, when she get of age, don't ever put your drink down, because it's going to be that one fool in that club that's going to be trying to put something in your drink. And then I had to tell her that was the date rape drug. Then we had to explain her what that does and what all that. You went into the whole situation. They're like, why would people do that? I said, because people is crazy. I said, but don't let it happen, because your daddy going to catch a case, and then you got to keep money on my books, because I'm going to be put up because I didn't handle business like you supposed to when somebody messes with your daughter. You feel me? So she was like, you would do that? I said, damn right I would do that. But just make sure you keep money on my books. So our conversations, it start from here, then it goes all the way there, then we come back, and then we get a little back even kill. But I feel as if these are conversations that she will remember and be like, yo, my daddy crazy as hell. For real, for real. My daddy crazy as hell. And I am.